Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Oracle. It is time for another update, and today we have a small adjustment here on the larger time frame. Now this is nothing substantial, this is nothing we haven't already discussed in the previous videos, but I wanted to track already the potential larger structure that we would have eventually needed to track anyway for continuation higher, for a signal that the larger structure is going to fail to extend higher. But within this movement, within this last push, from what is it, the May 2002, we have been looking previously as a potential ABC structure. We were focusing anyway on the wave C, the wave A was considered complete, and it is possible that this would in the end unfold as a 5-wave move to the upside. Now, what does this really change? Well, this would be an ending diagonal instead, and internally, currently nothing, because I would still track an ABC structure. It's just that the wave A would instead start here as an ABC. The wave C remains unchanged. I would still look for continuation higher within the 5th wave as usual, as per the previous interpretations. But once we had the top, I would have needed, regardless of what structure we were tracking, to look for the next area of support, for the next larger support. This would have always been a wave 4 correction within this idea of a wave 3. So I decided to do an early change for this chart, but ultimately it really changes nothing. Just wanted to bring everyone up to date. So here we will look, once we have the wave C complete, still for continuation higher. And in what type of structures could this take form? Well, within a couple actually, because within this larger pattern to the upside, we have here a potential singular wave 1, a wave 2, and many interpretations could work out on this chart. If you want to go through all of them, you should watch probably the previous video. But on this chart, we can track this as a 3rd wave up, but I could also track this as an ABC structure within a larger wave 3. If this is to be a singular wave 1, we would need to track it as a diagonal pattern, because I don't have sufficient waves to consider this an impulse, and this would need to be something like an ABC in a wave 1, ABC in a wave 2, ABC in a wave 3, most likely, and then I would still need a 4th and a 5th to complete the entire pattern. Both of them would be expected to unfold as ABC structures. Now, if it is an impulse, well, I could consider this to be an internal wave 3 in a 1, 2, 3, 4th and a 5th. I would still need to track a 5-wave move to the upside in this area, and the only real pattern that would allow me to track an ABC would be one where I would consider this a wave 1 complete, a wave 2 complete, and this to be an ABC in a wave 3. Could work out, doesn't really matter that much. In the end, we would still track the same structure within a smaller time frame. Now, for this structure, I'm still looking for continuation higher regardless, because in this ABC pattern, we don't have a full count. We absolutely need to continue to form still one more high to be able to consider this structure complete. If we fail to hold the area of support, that goes down to the $118.6 level, we would need to be prepared for a more broader failure of this chart. And we would need to be prepared even for a potential larger top, where I would not have a reliable structure to track anymore. This could work out still to push higher, who knows, maybe it could form something like an ABC structure, but nothing reliable, nothing that I wouldn't really recommend looking for a position in. Only as long as we hold here the $118.6 level can we still track reliably continuation higher. And I actually see this as a decent trade setup. I see this as a decent area for accumulation for the next wave to the upside. Now, what type of correction can we actually expect to unfold in this area? So to start, let's go from the beginning of this wave C. We have here a wave 1 to the upside. Keep in mind, this is unfolding as an ending diagonal, meaning that I have an ABC structure in a wave 1, I have an ABC structure in a wave 2, and I have an ABC structure in a wave 3. This is about what is already complete within this structure. But then, I'm looking for an ABC structure also within a wave 4. Well, we did have a potential bottom here at the 38.2% retracement, but we failed to hold the area of support. I provided you an ultimate level that wasn't even necessarily a high probability trade setup, but I provided you a level that was a signal it was going to see an early failure. Now, I would expect anyway within this wave 4 to build a similar proportion correction with what we had within this wave 2. Now, we can actually see this has taken about nearly a year. We could expect something similar for this wave 4 correction, maybe until, let's say, July, maybe until June, maybe it will take even longer, maybe a year, maybe a year and a half. Doesn't matter to be exact, but yeah, similar, let's say. Now, within this structure, I right now actually prefer that we should be heading towards a bottom within this initial push to the downside. But I also highly believe that we should expect it to only be the wave A. Yeah, in the previous video, we had here a more potentially complete A, B, C structure. But once we actually formed an additional low within this area, I would be even more prepared to have another extension lower. Now, is this absolutely needed? Clearly not, because within this structure, I'm looking at an impulse. Yeah, I don't really have doubts that we should be tracking this as an impulse. I could consider it to form a bottom sooner rather than later. I'm not too keen that we absolutely must get another low, but I would consider this to be a 1-2-1-2 setup. Yeah, that is the most clear part. Now, this could have formed a wave 3 bottom here, but the wave 3 could have extended all the way down here. In this case, I would consider this to be a wave 4 correction, a fifth wave, but then we would still need another 4-5 pattern before we can assume a bottom to be in place to have a full count within this 5-wave move. Now, of course, I cannot yet guarantee that this fifth wave has formed a bottom, that this structure won't extend itself lower, but once we actually have a bottom within it, I will still be looking for another extension within a correction. I will be tracking an area of resistance that would need to be broken to signal that this structure has formed a more likely bottom. Now, what have we been tracking in the previous video? So we had this idea of a 1, 2, 3, 4th and a 5th. I'm tracking the more bearish scenario that would allow even an additional extension once this 5th wave is complete, which by the way, it could be. Now, in the previous video, we had already gotten to the area of resistance in a 3-wave pattern. We did the minimum expectations, we have fulfilled them, and we extended lower. We had nearly broken below the beginning of this move to the upside, but clearly the area of support wasn't held. It was always going to be a low probability setup for continuation higher. Not impossible, but low probability definitely. Now that this 5th wave may actually have a bottom within this area, I could consider this to look for even another extension. Now, normally I would like to wait until we actually have a confirmation, but I would already also provide you the updated area of resistance anyway. So here we are looking at the levels between the $198.7 all the way up to the $235 level at the 50% retracement. Before we break the 50% retracement, I cannot really have a confirmation or even an indication really that this structure has formed a bottom. And you should be aware that this area does coincide a little, it does have some overlap with a broader assumption that a 5-wave move to the downside is already complete in a 1, 2, 3, 4th and a 5th, where again, this wave 3 could have bottomed here. It could be that this wave 3 has bottomed here and that this 5-wave move to the downside is complete. We would then be looking at resistance starting at the $222.3 level all the way up to the $297 level. Before we actually break this last level of resistance, I would not be able to look for continuation higher anyway, because we have a potential 5-wave move to the downside. Now, sure, if we get some sort of confirmation by forming an initial 5-wave move to the upside, even without breaking the area of resistance, we will have an area of support to track continuation higher, but I wouldn't necessarily expect this to be a high probability pattern to unfold within this area. The market usually likes to stay a little mysterious to keep us on our toes and make our life a little bit more challenging because trading is so easy. Now, again, the bottom for this initial wave A might already be in place. I would still need some signals, I would still be prepared for continuation lower, and as I was saying, I don't really have even a signal that this wave, this latest push to the downside is already complete. It does look a little bit promising, but I would still consider it quite risky. And you may be thinking, is it still possible? You may be wondering, is it still possible for us to have a bottom in the wave 4 within this area? So in terms of possibility, I would say, yeah, sure. But it's not going to be a high probability interpretation for me, and I would be rather inclined to believe that we should see this correction extend, Now, in terms of this area, I have been looking in the previous video for a potential, as I was mentioning, still continuation higher, but not within a high probability trade setup. And we had even an interpretation that would have allowed a larger extension to the downside within this 5-wave move that we're expecting in the internal orange interpretation. And this has unfolded in a more direct fashion, but I wouldn't necessarily consider this bearish. So technically I could count this as a 1, 2, 3, 4th, and 5th. I don't need any additional extensions to consider this pattern complete, and since I have a potentially full count within this area. Now, can it extend lower within a larger 1-2 setup? Of course it could, but I wouldn't necessarily bet on it because this doesn't need to. Yeah, sure, we need to be aware that we have here another area of resistance, and on this chart we are going to have so many resistance levels within so many different time frames that we will basically be in continuous resistance until we actually break above the white area of resistance, above the $297 level. Now, I will focus on the most relevant ones that would indicate me what type of pattern is unfolding, but mostly this structure could still extend within a much stronger push to the downside as long as it stays below the $199 level at the 78.6% retracement. Will I focus on this? Not really, no. I would instead focus on the potential extension in a more direct fashion in this area. That would assume something like a 1-2-1-2 setup where a third wave could still extend here. Sure, an ending diagonal could also work, but I wouldn't necessarily focus on that either. I would instead look strictly at the 50% retracement for a potential internal 1, 2, 3, 4th, and the 5th. In this case, we would be watching the levels up to the $180.9. We have already pushed decently high within this structure. Now we may have formed a top. In that case, I would be prepared for continuation lower. But already for me, if we manage to form a new high within this area, so a break above the $180 level would be a decent signal that a more significant bottom may be in place. Now, don't take this as an absolute because within this small time frame, we may still see distortions and it could very easily overall morph, but be prepared for a more direct push higher if we break above that level. And really, we should sit mostly on the daily time frame and be a bit patient with this chart. Have the discipline to give it some room. Now, if you got into a bit of an entry at the 38.2% retracement, we were looking for a potential bottom within this area, you will likely have an opportunity to exit. We see some divergences here on the daily time frame. It is strongly suggesting that a more significant bottom will be forming sooner rather than later within this area. But in the end, this is not financial advice and you should do as you see fit or consult rather a financial advisor. But for now, again, I'm watching the $180 level for continuation higher. Was this the previous top that we had here within this area? Around the 180. And then we would still have plenty of resistances before we can look for a more significant bottom. But even this relief rally could be substantial. And if we will see an initial 5-wave move to the upside within this area, we will of course be on top of it and track a potential area of support for continuation higher. That will be of interest for us. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.